Hey guys, Xander Holt here, and this is part 5 of my video series on the essential supplements and nutrients you need to get rock hard erections. Now, in the first 4 videos, we talked about testosterone, but we also talked about the fact that testosterone is not the only biochemical necessary for rock hard erections. Not by a long shot. You also need dopamine. You need oxytocin. You need nitric oxide, cGMP. And if you're waking up with morning wood, then you've probably got fairly good testosterone levels, because that's primarily caused by testosterone. But sexual erections, when you're with an actual partner, are much more complicated. If you're having a hard time getting an erection or maintaining an erection when you're with a sexual partner, then it's probably dopamine, but it could also be oxytocin, nitric oxide, cGMP. It could be sexual guilt. It could be a whole host of things that we go in depth in my course, Rock Hard for Life Formula. So today what we're going to talk about, though, is dopamine. Now, dopamine is super critical when it comes to rock hard for erections, and a lot of guys have a problem with dopamine because of porn addiction. Now, I have a whole separate series here on rock hard erections and porn and avoiding erectile dysfunction. So make sure you watch that series, particularly part 2, where I talk about resetting the dopamine system. But let's get into some additional techniques we can use. First of all, raw cacao powder, male superfood. And one of the things it contains in there is PEA, which helps release dopamine in the brain, as well as magnesium. And then we've got blueberries, which contain a polyphenol called anthocyanin, which protects the parts of the brain that produce dopamine and receive dopamine. And then we've got wild-caught and pasture-raised animals like wild-caught salmon, grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, pasture-raised chickens, and pasture-raised eggs. These are high in tyrosine. And tyrosine is the amino acid that becomes L-Dopa, which then becomes dopamine. So foods that are high in tyrosine are great for your dopamine. And then there's fermented dairy, because it's fantastic for your gut. Just make sure it's organic dairy or raw dairy. This is L-Reuteri yogurt made from organic half and half. I will teach you how to make this in a separate video because it is fantastic for your gut, and you can't buy it in the store. You got to make it. And then there's Brazil nuts. You see, those first 4 videos we made on testosterone have vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, and selenium. Those are all also critical for dopamine. So you got to have some selenium. And then almonds are great because they're high in tyrosine. Pumpkin seeds are great because they have zinc and vitamin B6, both of which are essential for dopamine production. And then other foods that are high in tyrosine, like avocado and spinach, both male superfoods, as well as bananas. And then we've got matcha, which is a Japanese green tea, where they take the leaves and they grind them down into a powder. Very high in tyrosine, great for your dopamine. And then there's the herb Mucuna purines, has L-Dopa in it. So it's very good for your dopamine production, overcoming porn addiction when you're overcoming it. And also, a lot of guys find that they get good erections with this stuff. So you might want to try it. Make sure you cycle it, though, if you try it. And then ZMA has zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6, all of which are essential for dopamine production. Now, the other important things to keep in mind are that you want to be making sure that you get good quality sleep. Most dopamine is produced in the last 6 to 9 hours of sleep, just like most testosterone is produced. So if you're not getting those last 6 to 9 hours of sleep, you're really missing out on some major manhood boosters. And also sunlight, particularly for dopamine. Sunlight on your skin and in your eyes has been shown to increase dopamine levels and increase the amount of dopamine receptors in your brain, as well as the sensitivity of those receptors. And then the last thing I want to say here is that it is not just porn addiction. Now, porn addiction is a huge problem when it comes to dopamine system in the male brain and having rock hard erections. No doubt about it. Make sure you watch that video series I made. But it's any kind of constant entertainment. Because every time you do it, like every time you're checking your Facebook and you're messing around with your phone, or you're surfing the internet, or you're constantly entertaining yourself, you're like binge watching Netflix, you're flooding your brain with dopamine, which decreases the sensitivity of those dopamine receptors, which makes it harder to get erections, just like porn does. So don't be so much of a consumer. Don't entertain yourself all the time. Primal man does not entertain himself all the time, okay? He hunts and he creates. Do that, especially a creator. Find out what you're passionate about and go create stuff instead of consume it. All right, that's it for this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our free Facebook group, Rock Hard for Life, where we talk a lot about primal sex, getting rock hard, and lasting as long as you want. Until then, go out and be a beast.